Bonjour, merci beaucoup d'être là.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I'm Melisa Bell. I'm the CNN correspondent here in Paris, and each year we are very happy to be the partners of the Paris Peace Forum. We are a little late, so we'll resume as soon as possible. We'll have the current COP president, the Belém COP, in some time, but also previous COP presidents to try to draw on their experience and to see how the stage is set now 10 years after the Paris Accord. But first, the Mayor of Paris, Madame Anne Hidalgo.
Excellence.
Excellencies.
Excellencies. Ça marche? D'accord. Excellence, mesdames
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's not working. People tell me it's not working. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Si? Bon. Est-ce que ça
It is
marche?
working.
D'accord.
Is it working well?
Eh bien,
Very good.
Excellence,
Excellencies,
messieurs les présidents des COP, très chers
COP presidents, chairpersons, very dear Laurent Fabius, President of COP21, the Paris COP, previous COP presidents, future COP presidents. I welcome you to Paris, and I welcome all our friends in Paris, you ladies and gentlemen, committed for the climate. This is your city, and I hope that you will find inspiration and joie de vivre here in Paris in such a confused world. I'd like to thank President André Corrêa, president of this Paris Peace Forum, as well as all organizers, give us the opportunity to speak with each other and under the aegis of the French presidency about the key topics around peace in the world. Climate is directly linked with peace in the world. We know it. It's not a matter of conviction. This is a hard fact. 10 years ago, we gathered in Paris. I had just been elected mayor of Paris, and we were together to organize the Paris COP under the presidency of Laurent Fabius. At the time, this was the last chance we had. We were all gathered here. All countries were here. There was amazing work by all delegations, amazing, outstanding work on the part of the negotiating team as well. And we reached this historic agreement on climate, the Paris Peace Accord. Is still relevant today. I have the honor of governing the city of Paris. I've been governing the city for more than 10 years, and for me, it's been also an ethical commitment. I tried my best to implement this agreement, to make it living and breathing. I had to deliver on it. It's hard to be optimistic in our world, but let me say, we cannot lower our guard, and we don't do this here. For the past 10 years here in Paris, alongside the mayors of the world, we built coalitions from the C40 to the Francophone mayor networks, accounting for more than 80% of African mayors, and we made clear understandings. It was not only about advocacy. We sought to act because local governments are decisive actors, decisive players. They take action with NGOs, the private sector, but also with governments, of course, who also deliver. And together, we decided to take action across all topics linked with the Paris Accord. In Paris, we wanted to reduce air pollution, and we reached our target. Today, Paris is breathable again. This was not an easy road, but pollution went down by 60%. And thanks to our action, which led to air pollution decrease, this is good news. Other cities took other actions. In Paris, the Seine is now swimmable. We depolluted the Seine. We reached again this goal, and this river is now testimony to how a city can adapt to higher temperatures. And this summer, more than 100,000 people swam in the Seine river for free. And this, I believe, is part and parcel of what we need to deliver. With mayors of the world, we created coalitions. We were heard during the COP28 in Dubai. Our voice was heard. We implemented an initiative, CHUMP, under the aegis of Mr. Bloomberg. We created a multilateral, multi-tiered initiative. Thanks to this initiative, we didn't replace, but we did fill the gaps of the fractured multilateralism in today's world. And in this initiative, we have more than 76 states. We have city networks, and of course, scientists who are here to help us move along and deliver. I'll conclude from Paris to Belém. This is what we should set our mind on. How should we take action to implement? The temperature has continued to climb up since the Paris Agreement. Yes, it's true, but without it, we'd already been at +5 degrees today. We shouldn't be happy about the results. I'm not, but let's be conscious of the fact that we should not be skeptical. We should see the glass half full. And I'd like to commend here the president of the Belém COP. We pin all our hopes on this COP. It will take place in Brazil. Brazil is one of the leaders on the planet. It's a voice we need. It's a strong voice. And around this president, there will be heads of states and governments, the UN, NGOs, and companies and local authorities. And together, they will implement or set the goals and implement them over the next 10 years, showing that we think about future generations, but also the fact that we think that the rights of future generations are a matter of today. So all hail the Paris COP. It delivered such an amazing result, and viva the future Belém COP and the future Belém Agreement.
Bravo, Madame la Maire. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madame Mayor. Thank you very much.
To pick up now on what was just said by the Mayor of Paris, I have the very great pleasure of introducing our very distinguished panel of the current head or president of COP and so many former presidents of COP. Please do come up. We're going to look at the very tangible ways that the Paris Accords will now be considered and can be built on. Thank you. Vous êtes là, Monsieur Fabius. Thank you so much. So the idea then is to look with all of you at where we are 10 years on from the COP, the initial COP, the Paris Accords, and Laurent Fabius, we're very keen to hear your insights about looking back 10 years on, what's been achieved, what were the milestones that it set that allowed us to be here. But first, perhaps to you, the current president of the COP, we're all looking ahead to Belém. Tell us, if you would, first of all, what your hopes are, what you think can emerge, whether you think at this stage the current fragmentation of the hopes of multilateralism can be overcome in the name of fixing new ambitious objectives.
Well, we need to overcome that. We need to prove that multilateralism is the way forward, and we need to show the many positive dimensions of the results of 10 years after Paris. Because the fact is that although there is a gloomy ambiance somehow in the world about climate change. The numbers say the opposite. Now, renewables are a success. Solar is incredible all over the world. It's the cheapest energy anywhere in the world. The numbers are there. The solutions are there. But we have to face a new moment in which there is like a questioning of the logic of mitigation. Are we going to have the results? Are we not going to have the results? The numbers are there from Paris. If we hadn't had Paris, we would be in the direction of 4 degrees. We are not as well as we wished, but we are getting closer to what we wish. So we need another push, we need some new steps, but definitely we are in the right path.
Just one last one to you, because of course this has been described, André Corrêa de Lago, as the COP of COPs. So it is a crucial moment, the pressure is on, not simply because all of these years later, 10 years on, the world is more fragmented politically than it was back then when everyone was full of hope in the multilateralism, etc. But also the urgency is so much greater. We're seeing it, we're living it, the heat, I mean.
Yes, I think that science became more and more precise as the years went by. And compared to Paris, for instance, now we know much better that 1.5 degrees is the limit for us to avoid some tipping points. So, yes, this is a COP, as President Lula says, the COP of truth. We have to recognize that we know enough to act. We have negotiated enough to act, and now we need to implement. And I hope that we will be able to do it. Obviously, I'm inspired by all the former presidents of COP to try to bring results in Belém that really justify your I'm very glad with your optimism.
And we look forward to getting all of your experiences, because each of you has presided a COP at a crucial moment and will have insights. But perhaps first you, Laurent Fabius, you need no introduction here in France. You were a huge part of the beginning of this idea back in 2015, at a time when there was no question about multilateralism or science, when all of these things were expected as the basis for this global conversation. When you consider all that has changed, how important do you think it was, and how much of a success has it been?
I will try and speak English. In fact, I remember 2 years before Paris, France was the only candidate, which means that it was not so easy. And when France was appointed as the future host of the COP, the delegates came to me and said, "Good luck, Mr. Fabius." And I have always that in my mind. We work together because at that time we were able to work together. And I always say that the Paris success is due to the conjunction of 3 S: science, society, and states. And we were able, as diplomats, to get together all the states. Okay. Now it's a different setting, a different perspective. But I think that Paris is decisive because Paris has given the aim and the means, the procedures. My fellows here have improved step by step the elements. But now the situation is different because, as André said, Paris Agreement is under attack. Paris Agreement is under attack. Many people say, well, it's not the first time that the US president has decided to leave. Okay, but when he left for the first time, the real efficiency of his decision takes place the very moment when Mr. Biden came in. Therefore, there was no impact. Mm-hmm. Now it's quite different. And I think we have not to change Paris. Okay, the basic elements are there. But now we have to implement, because what is lacking is implementation. We agree with President Lula and with André that we must not expect from Belém new objective. The main objective, the political objective is to implement and to say to general public, we have made promises before, we have taken commitments, but now the time has come to deliver, and we deliver thanks to Belém. That will be an outstanding result.
And it's an important part. Perhaps you, Michel Kurtyka, you were the president of COP24, also the first Polish minister of ecology, environment, and these questions. On that question, to pick up from what Laurent Fabius just said, of implementation, how important is it that targets are set by countries, that they're respected, and to the question of transparency, that they're explained?
Thank you very much. Yes, I had the honor to manage Polish COP in 2018. Just to remind you that Poland is a serial organizer of COPs, so we already had 3 of them. Mine was last in 2018, and it happened in a very particular moment and in a very particular place. First of all, because we had to deliver on the implementation of the Paris Agreement. Some of you remember maybe that we are talking about Rulebook. So the Katowice Rulebook, the one which was created in Silesia, it was 100 pages document balancing different challenges linked with the implementation of the Paris Agreement, including transparency. Yes, you're talking about transparency. One of the main chapters was exactly about what it means for states to present a nationally determined contribution, what it is, how we should be talking about it, how we should be communicated about it, etc. And now all this legal framework is in place. And as André and Laurent said, now we have to catch up with implementation. We have to prove that this legal framework is viable. And I think in this regard also COP in Silesia, which is a very interesting region, it's a very industrial region. It was very good to have very different perspectives, also linked with geographical placement of COPs. So this one brought the idea that if we want to advance, we need to take everybody on board. Nobody can be left behind. That's the famous idea of just transition. And now when I see that President Lula and ambassador and president-designate, and in few days, president of COP30, André Lago, is organizing, is putting this COP at the heart of the Amazonian forest, for me it's an obvious call for action in terms of adaptation. So I would add to 2 elements that were brought by my great colleagues. I would add also this geographical significance of a place and the importance of adaptation for COP30.
Mukhtar Babayev, you were the last COP president ahead of Ambassador Lago. You will tell us about the experience that you had, but also just picking up on the points just made. In a way, 10 years on from Paris, a lot of this now is in the minds of people. Countries understand that they have nationally determined contributions to make, that we have targets to fix. It has progressed in terms of achievement, of ambitions that need to be set. On the question of how far it's gone and the fact that we are on the wrong side of where we need to be, there's still so much more ambition that is needed. How hopeful are you?
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I am existing COP president.
Yes, still. Sorry, I will
hand over 10th of November.
So sorry.
That's why it's a big mission to COP29 team to continue to build this trust between the countries, because too much mistrust today in the world, and a lot of complications, a lot of pressure, not only to the Paris Agreement, not only to Paris, but to the multilateral process. That's why it is too important now to demonstrate how the world, how the communities, how the countries can consolidate and to be together in very important time of our life. And, in Baku, we adopted a lot of very important decisions. regarding the climate finance. Now is the time of implementation. Laurent already mentioned, and Michel also, that it is time to act. And also it is time to ask ourselves how we perform our obligations, our promises. It is a very good time before to take the new commitment to evaluate how we perform our previous obligations, previous pledges. That's why it is very good time to demonstrate that country is on board. All the parties are ready for constructive dialogue in Belém, and all of us were very motivated and very mobilized to support Brazilian team in Belém. Thank you.
To you, Salaheddine Mezouar, you were president, of COP22, the former foreign minister of Morocco as well. I'd love your thoughts on the progress that's been made and what more needs to be achieved ahead of Belém.
There are always things that remain to be done. I apologize, I speak French. Just to mix things up a little bit. There are always things that remain to be done. Because we must not forget that the Paris Agreement, its success was already a challenge. To implement it is a challenge multiplied by 1,000, I'd say. Because the principles have been established, but there are many things that states and countries need to agree on. So, over the 10-year period, many beautiful things have been accomplished. We have to recognize this. Each of the COPs have managed in their own way a certain amount of things, and that there is an accumulation. The only thing that we always come back to is the cadence. The cadence is not adapted with the speed of climate change and the commitments taken in Paris. We are on a different path. And so this applies a lot of pressure on my friend here, André, for the COP30. But it's also a lot of pressure on us all because we are working collectively. We have all taken on this responsibility, and we are thankful, thanks to his initiative and the initiative of my friend Laurent, to find ourselves in a circle of COP presidents, which explains that COPs is a human path of mobilization. We cannot just be responsible for a COP and then leave the next day without benefiting from the dynamics that must be established internationally together. And we are open to goodwill because the challenge of the climate is the challenge of humanity. But it's also a socio-economic, political, multilateral challenge. And therefore, there is a level of frustration. This must be recognized. The thing is, things are not going quick enough. When you go to the different regions in the world, there is more frustration than satisfaction. This is a clear observation. Why? Because those who are paying for the degradation of the climate are not those who caused it. So this notion of climate justice or injustice will remain an equation that will be raised throughout all COPs, between COPs, and this will continue. The second fundamental aspect is equity. We cannot move forward by saying that equity will not be a topic that will continue to come back. We cannot say, okay, we're a rich country, as we often hear, and the rich countries, we have nothing to fear because we have the resources and we have our policies. The others can just help themselves out. And this goes against the spirit of the Paris Agreement, which was to ensure that the global north and the global south, the east and the west, worked together. That is the spirit of the Paris Agreement. And this is meaningful because working together means we must accept that we're moving forward together on topics that no country in the world, regardless of how powerful they are, can resolve themselves. We need one another. We need to work collectively, and we need to be humble. What's missing in the negotiations, and this is to my friends who have done the COP, is humbleness. You know, the powerful believes he is powerful. Those who don't have the resources try to accept and just to take what they can. And then there are others who say, well, we have time and we're going to build and we're going to counteract. But no negotiation can work on this basis. If you establish principles and you draw up criteria, good sense means that there must be commitment. But the requirements are so disconnected to what is on offer that for me, it's no longer a discussion. It's just a question of speed. But we must remember that there is political will. But political will changes depending on where you are. But everything is a question of political will. The destruction and the breakdown that we see in the world today is linked to the fact that there are those who wish to continue based on the logic of the world of the past, and those who want to build a different world that brings together different partnerships, which means we support one another differently. But the Global South is not opposed to the Global North. But the Global North must make an effort to understand that we cannot continue to create this feeling of opposition. But I love the Global North, just like everyone else, and I studied in the North. There's no problem there. But what I mean by what I said is that what I see is this desire to fight the imbalances that we're currently observing. And this will make Belém a success. This will make Belém a success. We have been through periods where climate was not even part of the debate. I see this returning. However, I also see the desire to change things. However, for the last 10 years, for example, in Africa, I can tell you that many things have been done. Many topics have been advanced. People have used very little resources. Solutions have been found internally. This means that people and countries have not given up. But there is also the question of hope, and that's totally normal. Humanity without hope is useless. That would mean we would be animals. I won't take too much time, but I just wanted to give a different perspective. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for that.
On that with you, Ambassador de Lago, the idea that there is this body of evidence that progress has been made, that the efforts that were made 10 years ago have borne their fruit, that little by little we are making progress, but there is a perception that it has been frustratingly slow. There is a perception about the problem of equity at the heart of this between the North and the Global South. And at this point, in Belém, how do you address that frustration from parts of the Global South that feel that the actual concrete changes that were meant to be brought by this process haven't happened enough?
Well, I think that there is a huge expectation that the South will be very much heard in Belém, since President Lula is so respected in the South, and I believe that the frustration is normal. The pace has been too slow, that there is no doubt about it. The financial resources were always below what was expected. But if you look at, and as my dear colleague was saying, if you look at what countries have done with leurs moyens du bord, with what they had, with what they could afford to do, it is very impressive. The developing countries have entered this agenda with very much conviction. And there is no doubt that if access to finance becomes really proportional to these amazing things that we need to do for the climate, I believe that the South will surprise everybody. And we have seen how some countries, obviously, I'm suspicious, I'm going to say something nice about mine, but it's true. We have 90% of our electricity is renewable, and we cover 99% of the population with electricity. So if you look at China, if you look at India, if you look at so many countries that have done so much with much less resources than they should have, because we could do much more. Now, for instance, the frustration that we have as a forest country, as a tropical forest country like Brazil, regarding solutions for forestry, we are launching a new facility, the Tropical Forest Forever facility, that I believe will bring for the first time something that really values the conservation of forests. We didn't have any instrument to deal with the conservation of forests. So I think that we're going to see in Belém people bringing solutions. People know about their problems. People have become experts in their own problems, and they can bring solutions. And I think we're going to be very surprised with how many solutions we have from the South to present in Belém.
That's interesting. Laurent Fabius, we keep hearing, we heard it from the Mayor of Paris, we heard from Ambassador de Lago, of the individual national progress that has been made. But for you, who was such an important part of creating this process 10 years on, has it been a success?
Je vais parler français. D'abord,
I'm going to speak French. Just a comment about what our friend Mezwa mentioned. He mentioned humbleness, humility. You are right. I would say that the words humus and humility have the same root. And so Paris is a success, that is true.
La pente était plus 4 degrés, plus 5 degrés. Maintenant, c'est 2,8.
We were heading to 5%, and now it's 2.5, but 2.8 rather. But 2.8 is much more than 1.5, whereas we know that we cannot go beyond 1.5. Now, this may ruffle a few feathers in the room, but when we established the figure at 1.5, and I did this, it was the last evening. There was a third text to be negotiated, and the role of the chair is to say, because at the time that is how it worked, this is what we'll keep and this is what we won't keep. And so we kept the 1.5 degrees. However, there was no agreement between the delegates. As regards 1.5 should never be passed, or if 1.5 should be the limit not to surpass at the end of the century. And that's not the same thing, and I'll explain this differently. So either it's this, and we can't go beyond 1.5, or it's this, and we go towards 1.5. Now, given changes and the evolution, we find ourselves in the second situation. This is a scientific fact, and we must always base ourselves on science. What does this mean? Well, it means that we must, when based on the Paris Agreement, we have to adapt our path. This, of course, means that we must comply with what was decided in Dubai, transitioning away from fossil fuels. But this also means that we must preserve carbon sinks. It also means, and this may require a review of what some governmental organizations are doing, speeding up carbon removal. Otherwise, it won't be possible to end at 1.5. So, Paris established the procedure, the objectives, the elements, in a very subtle and precise way. In fact, so precise and so subtle that there is now a new element that has been decided by the ICJ. That is to say that these are not just simple decisions that were taken, but rather these are legally binding decisions. This means that states can be challenged if they don't make the necessary efforts to comply with these objectives. And obviously, much work remains to be done. And the Belém COP will enable us to continue this work based on what was decided in Paris and over the course of successive COPs. And I've always been very surprised by the fact that even with COVID, which was extremely serious, but in the end, if you think about it, a lot less serious than the evolution of the climate. How is it possible that in just a few months we were able to find a vaccine and find hundreds of billions? But with climate change, there is no vaccine, and we have not found the necessary funds. I think there's a clear difference. With COVID, you know, if we didn't take action, then this would lead to death. With climate change, the prospect is not more optimistic. It's just further away from us. People do not feel directly concerned. So it's the responsibility of governments, NGOs, and local communities, and the public, and companies to explain, as Michael Bloomberg said, that the climate issue is not just something that is going to happen in the long term. It's long term, medium term, and short term. And the short term means we must start now.
Next question. Laurent Fabius's point is fascinating. 1.5 degrees was an important target, and we heard Antonio Guterres say, look, we're going to pass it. Things are not where they need to be. It is it at once gives us a target that has been missed, and that can make us worried that the entire thing is a failure, or on the contrary, something we can keep our eye on for the future, and therefore something that is essential nonetheless, and legally enforced and binding today, which is completely different. Do you agree?
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Avec la concurrence de
Thank you very much.
Je vais me permettre à Paris aussi de dire quelques mots en français.
Since we're in Paris, I'm going to say a few words in French. And given that our host is here, Madame Hidalgo, and also all the Parisians who are here with us. So you asked a question which I think we need to take and examine, particularly what happened over the last 10 years, because the world has changed significantly. And of course, we can bring up a number of things, but I'd like to point out two particular elements. First of all, it's a question of technological change. Laurent, you mentioned the vaccine. In some ways, technology is the vaccine. However, for the last 10 years, technology is the vaccine to climate change. And so this vaccine exists because we have technologies that exist in terms of transportation, energy production. We're much smarter as it relates to the growth of AI. So I don't think we should get too wrapped up in the idea of an easy solution. And we shouldn't just say our civilization is terrible. Our civilization produces vaccines. We have recipes, we have a medication to cure the problems that we are faced with. And it's our responsibility to use these wisely. However, over the last 10 years, it must be said that the world has changed radically. 10 years ago, things were completely different. Energy in conventional energy far surpassed the investment in renewable energies. Laurent mentioned it. $2 billion that are invested in renewable energy. We speak now about the renaissance of nuclear energy, hydraulic energy. So we have a wide range of new solutions. at our disposition. And this did not exist 10 years ago. And there's also a second thing that's very different in today's world. I'll call it the alignment of the stars. When our COP concluded, I really felt as though our world was on the brink, like we were on a cliff edge. There was an emotion that was very difficult to describe, but I think it was perhaps one of a competition rather than compromise and alignment. But this was a moment that did bear fruit. Now, now we're talking about peaceful cooperation or multilateralism, if you will. So things have changed. But I think we need to find new ways of moving forward. How can we talk about adaptation or adaptations via the various countries? How can we ensure that we upgrade our infrastructures in terms of their resistance to storms and other climate events? This is also beneficial to local populations. So we have no regrets in some ways. There are things that we shouldn't regret, that we must not forget. You also asked the question about the difficulties that we're currently facing, and I would turn the question around and say, let's take a look at the journey we've made. Be optimistic, realistic, but also be clear and focus on what we can do now.
I think they're excellent points. President Babayev, to you. There is so much that has progressed, the technology, the will, the actual achievements that have been made nationally and globally. But at Baku, you had a pledge, $300 billion. The financing in the end, putting money where it needs to be, is essential. How realistic?
Yeah, I will continue in English. Yeah, good question, correct question. No climate action without finance, you're absolutely right. And countries agreed in 2024, just several months ago, 300 billion contributions from donor side, from public and private sources to the developing world. How these obligations implement? It's a big question from the small island development states, from the LDCs and other developing world, how the donor countries planning to implement this pledge. It is, for us, I think it is so important now for COP29 team and also for COP30 team to prevent any step backs from already adopted decisions. Unfortunately, if we compare 2024 and 2025, ambition is absolutely different. Where are the climate leaders in the world? Wow. Last year, all focus of the world leaders mobilized and focused to the climate initiatives. This year, nothing. We not hear any ambitious ideas or ambitious pledges from the world climate leaders. And it is the big question for the world community. And for us, it's also another one big question to the MDBs, international financial institutions, how they are planning to implement their pledges. It's also another one question. After the adoption of the NATO countries, 5% of GDP to the defense finance, it is question to the governments of the donor countries, how they will prioritize the financial resources to defense, it's $1 billion of the dollars, or to the climate, social, humanitarian, and other issues. It's a big question. That's why I think in Belém, we also, together with COP30 team, we need to submit another one very important document, Baku to Belém roadmap, how we are planning to increase the finance from 300 to 1.3 trillion. It's big expectation from the developing world. It's a big pledge, I think, André, for our team and for your team to find the answers, clear answers and clarification for these issues.
I think it's an excellent point, Saladin Mezouar, that question of it takes national ambition, but it takes also a global dynamic that maybe was there a year ago, a couple of years ago, is less there today. How does Belém deal with that, and comment contrer finalement cet énorme changement de dynamique?
How can we counter this change of dynamic globally? This is a great question, and it is at the core of the debate we've had within the circle. And there are worries, certainly. Worries for many countries, because some of them are tired of some things. With new objectives, new goals, you can do it two ways. You can show that you're the champion, you can show that you're the best, but when you're respectful, the country, if you want to arrive to 10, 15, 20, you can commit to that, and then you condition the rest. If you have finances, if you have aid, if you have help, then you follow through with your commitments, otherwise you don't. So I believe that there were countries hesitating, but I believe there will be surprises. Now, just a few things. I would like to say something about what Laurent said about COVID and how resources was mobilized. COVID meant death, but it also was about getting rid of politicians. About climate change, there are people who die as well, but not at the same places. People who die other places. A lot of indigenous people are suffering, a lot of populations in the deserts. Death is also present, and grievances are present. However, there is short term and there is mid and long term. I'm a dreamer, and I want a collective impulse, but I'm a lucid dreamer. I believe that humanity has a lot of surprises in its pocket. We have impulses, we have ideas. With Laurent, I keep this idea that the Paris Agreement needs to be held with all the strength we can muster, even if there are some belatedness, there are some late implementations, because when you think in terms of geopolitics and geostrategy, you see that the world is not reassuring in terms of cooperation, solidarity, etc. So you need to hold on to what can unite humanity. And the one thing that can unite humanity is climate. We have stories to tell, beautiful stories to tell. I'm a dreamer, as I said, a lucid dreamer. And I believe that each and every one of us has the ability to see transitions, to see great transitions, some as a constraint, as a restraint, and that's heavy. But when you think that this transition is an opportunity, climate change is an opportunity for change. It is an opportunity for change over scales of humanity, humanism, the youth that will change the world differently. So we have to keep all of this in mind and keep fighting, because I believe that we have the capacity to move forward together. With this optimistic trend.
Based on the Belém conference, you have these national contribution, nationally determined contributions. Only a fraction of the countries have so far delivered them. There is concretely less and less, it seems, political will to make this happen. How do you counteract that? How do you ensure that Belém becomes a success by clinging on to the idea, the principles, what's at the heart of Paris, without losing to the despair of the facts that there appear to be less and less political will to make it happen?
Yes, I think that in that sense, we need civil society to be more active than ever. And I think we have many surprising allies, because I think that, for instance, in business, you have some sectors that are extremely keen to support this agenda. The other day we were discussing, for instance, insurance companies. Insurance companies are now the big supporters because they are suffering the consequences of climate change, and so many others. But I think that we have to turn the discussion into the positive aspects, because unfortunately the tragedies that we are seeing, and yesterday and today in the Caribbean, these stories are very sad stories, but we have to insist on the answers that we are finding to some of those challenges. And I believe that this is the story that we have to tell, because people, I'm told, are very tired of listening to sad stories about climate. And humanity has adapted to many circumstances. I think that this is another opportunity in which we can see that we can adapt to a new reality, and we need a new economy. But if civil society is not convinced of that, it's very difficult, because the governments are fearful at the moment, because there are immediate challenges that they are needing to address. So I'm an optimist, not in the elegant way as you, my dear, but I'm Brazilian. You know, you cannot be Brazilian and not be optimistic. So I have to be optimistic. If not, I lose my passport. So, so that's it.
Thank you. So the climate debate, no doubt, and it's true that you only have to switch on the news to realize that, to your point, what people are watching, despite what their governments think and say and do, is that it's time to act. Thank you so much to all of us for being with us today, and for that optimistic take on the future. Thank you. Thank you.